So I did an unboxing video in my Vlogmas series, and it was for this diffuser, and I'm having lavender mist come in, and it's strong right here in my face, but I have it on the floor and it's doing pretty good. It's so small. So I've been jamming to Kirk Franklin Christmas, as you heard on the last video, and this is one of my jams because a friend of mine, when we were growing up, and it's funny, I can't remember his name. He was my friend when we were in elementary school, but I can't remember his name. But he sung this song, "They're taking cries from Christmas." So I'm just having a nostalgic moment. I'm Dr. Vernita White. I go by Dr. V, and I am your brilliant life strategist, and I help highly ambitious women and some men. I help them to gain more personal satisfaction and fulfillment beyond their positions, titles, and degrees. And I help them in a few ways. And one, I help them to regain their voice with confidence, I help them to realign with their core values with clarity. And then I help them to embrace reinvention with courage. And I've broken this down before, but it doesn't hurt because we always have new people coming in. And the reason why that's important, because it all boils down to becoming professionally powerful through personal empowerment. And the people I deal with are usually parallel-preneurs. You know, they work in their full-time careers, but they also want to expand and do things on the side. And the first thing that they have to do, which they don't realize this, but I help them see, is that we have to clear some personal and internal work first. That's not the sexiest thing, that's not the hot topic, but we really do that. And people who are traditionally educated, they understand what I mean by you have to regain your voice and build that confidence back up, especially if you're planning to step out and do something different or transition. Also helping them to realign with their core values with clarity. I realized in doing some consulting work and personal development work, and even with my own journey, we don't really know our core values. We know more about a company's core values or our, a job or whatever. We know their core values, but we don't know our own core values. And honestly, if we did, we probably wouldn't be working for some of the places we've been working for. And then finally, to embrace reinvention. If you're a parallel-preneur or having the thought of wanting to do your own thing, whether that's full-time or part-time, there's something that has to happen for you. You have to learn how to reinvent yourself. Like the mindset that it took you to go and advance in your career is not the same mindset that is going to take you to expand your platform in any way that you want to do that. So that is what I do. That is how I help people. It is day 15 in Vlogmas, and I want to stop trying to beat myself up about this because, things happen in the family and just got thrown off schedule. But anyway, in this Vlogmas, we're talking about self-care for the holidays, and I'm going to put in parallel-preneur. And what are some tips? How does a parallel-preneur practice self-care? And I have a different approach. And if you're new to me, a parallel-preneur is someone who still has their full-time career and they're also doing things on the side. So a side hustle, but in my opinion, not the side hustle that's totally different. Like my movement is embracing your brilliance. So if you're, whatever you're doing for your main job, like your career, you're able to expand that. So I'm not saying if you're a college professor, then you go sell real estate. I mean, that is a parallel-preneur, but in my mind, it's like, are you trying to do that, to leave full time, or is it just a hobby? My whole thing is, and we talked about this, but having, it's kind of like an extension. That's what I want to say, an extension to what you do. All right, so I'm going to read what I have for self-care, then I'm going to get into why I said this. So I know the holidays are a time where people tend to be either sad or they're like overjoyed. But this year, after the panorama, some people are just like, meh, as around the holidays, it really doesn't feel the same in the atmosphere. And I love Christmas, and I said, this is my favorite holiday. And they were like, oh, well, that's typical. Everyone loves Christmas, but not really. Everyone doesn't love Christmas. And even with the things that have happened in my family, my whole family dynamic has changed. I had to make myself get back into loving everything about Christmas and the holiday season. So it's not always a happy time for people, but I'm learning that you got to create your own happy. So a few things I want to say is like how to do self-care. And we have the traditional self-care, like take time for yourself. You know, some people, well, let me just get into what I wrote down. So I said, one, rest your brain. Rest your brain, especially for my parallel-preneurs. It is very easy for us to continue the mind rush of one, what's going on at work, and then two, what do we have to do for our business, and then what are we doing in our whole lives? So take the time to rest your brain. One way I do that is by meditating and sitting still and capturing my thoughts. When I feel that my brain is in overload, I do the meditation where I do try to silence my brain. I'm not saying that's the only meditation, but when I feel overwhelmed, like I do different types of meditation. I talked about that before. But when I feel overwhelmed and just my brain won't shut up, I do take that time to do that type of meditation to where I complete silence. So find ways to rest your brain, even if it's not vegging out on some movies or I don't want to say scrolling on social media because that's not resting your brain, but like mindless TV, something to where your brain just turns off. So that is what I'll say, rest your brain. And I'll tell you why I picked these in a minute. The second thing I want to say is take time to reflect over your year. That is a way to practice self-care, especially for the parallel-preneur. Take time to reflect over the year. You can't move forward until you understand what took place this past year. And I typically do a video, and it's probably coming up, a year in review. And I remember when I did a decade in review, and that was like so fascinating to people. And I realized that I've accomplished so much more than I had given myself credit for. So then I started doing it every year, doing a yearly reflection. And that helps you to see, even though we all strive for more, but this helps us see that we have come a long way. We are not the same people. So that's a way of self-care, because that's a way of loving yourself and pouring back into yourself. So take time to reflect, good, bad, indifferent, but put down a lot of things. And it can be something small. And I would suggest starting with the 5 areas of your life. I call it the power pentagon in my life, but you can do the 5 areas, the 9 environments, or the 12 areas of your life. But the core is like your family, your relationships, your health and wellness, your career and business, and your spiritual life. And so start looking at those, and then you can expand if you want. But that's one way to practice self-care for the parallel-preneur. The other thing I said was show gratitude. So one, you can reflect, but then actually write out, I am grateful for, and then make a list of things. When I feel that I am beating myself up, not being so kind to myself, wanting more, and not wanting more in the good way, but wanting more like this isn't good enough kind of thing, I make myself be more intentional about gratitude. I do gratitude in the morning. I'll admit I slacked off, but I can tell I've slacked because the way my attitude has been about certain things. When I would get up every morning, I think Oprah practices this strategy as well. I would wake up and I would write 5 things that I'm grateful for, every single thing. And if I did not write them, I verbally said them and sat with that and let it sink into my spirit. And what that did was, and this was beyond like, this was beyond big things. I even went to the smallest things before, like I am grateful that I have a kitchen, just something so small, just showing gratitude over the smallest things. And what that did for me was center me and say that you're more blessed than you actually realize, and you're taking things for granted. So when you're focused on what's not working in life, realize that some people don't have these things. And a lot of times these are first world problems. Now, I did coach a friend and tell her to stop making excuses, because I know some people can say first world problems aren't real, but in certain moments they're real to us. But when we're in a place of like complaining about these things, we need to take a step back and be grateful for them. And that's one way to practice self-care. So be grateful, what I wrote down, show gratitude for all of your goals that you have accomplished. And then guess what? All the ones you have not accomplished. And what that does is it gives your brain and your ego time to process, like, oh, he or she, they're good no matter what. Whether they accomplish, they're good. Whether they didn't accomplish, they're good. They're like even. And you know, you want to be that. You don't want to always be up and down. And it tricks your brain. So your brain doesn't freak out when things don't go your way all the time, because you're showing gratitude. I am so grateful that I was able to write this book. Or I am grateful that although I wasn't able to write this book, I was able to learn this about myself in the process. So that's another way to show, to have self-care for yourself during the holidays. Another one is review your plan for the upcoming year. I should have said write your plan. Depending on where you are, review or write your plan for the upcoming year, especially as a parallel-preneur. You want to be intentional about your life. And the people that I work with, and I'm saying this about myself as well, we've accomplished so much in such a short amount of time, and we were so strategic about the things that we wanted in life. But then we got to a point where we kind of coast. And if you know what I'm saying, comment down below. We've sort of coasted in our lives at this point, because it's like we worked so hard that we got here, and then we kind of just stopped. Because people around us are like, oh my gosh, you're doing great, you're fabulous, blah, 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 blah. But we know the truth. So this is the time to get back into that being strategic. You know, you didn't get to the level of career you had by just coasting. You may think that you've coasted, but that's why in my book I talk about embracing grit. You got to give yourself credit for the strategy that took place, even if you didn't physically write it down. Like I mentioned in another video, I wanted to finish my PhD in 3 years. It was just a thought. It wasn't something that I actually strategized. And while I didn't physically write it on paper, and now looking back on it, there were strategic steps I took to be able to do that. And that's what we have to do in our overall lives as well. And get back to being strategic and intentional about the life that you want, and then review it. And what that does as far as self-care is it lets you think and see things from the place of future you. Future you is so much better than current you, and definitely better than past you. And your point is like writing a love note. And this is how I say, it's writing a love note to your future self and showing appreciation and realizing where you can go, and you're just allowing yourself to dream. And I think that's a version of self-care. So either write your new plan for your life, and that's with your current career and as a parallel-preneur, and then also review it if you have not done so already. The next thing I want to say is, now this is more technical. Start as a parallel-preneur. You know that you want to do this thing on the side, and if you really want to grow it into a business, start treating it like it's a business or another part or another career. And that's why I want to say career in quotes, because I don't want you to have the mindset of an employee, but your thought process and how you were strategic about building your career. You want to build your business as well. Start automating everything that you can automate. If it's social media posts, start creating those and automating those. If it's an email, weekly newsletter, start creating that and drafting that out and scheduling that. If it's YouTube videos, don't follow my example for Vlogmas, but I do have videos coming up for the next year. Vlogmas is a little different. Start planning those and creating those, or at least outlining those. And what that is going to do for you, the more that you can plan and automate, especially for your side business or your side hustle, however you want to say it, it alleviates stress. And it's that underlying subconscious stress to where, yes, it's the holidays and we think that we should decompress, but our brains are forever moving. And businesses don't slow down during the holidays. Things ramp up for true businesses in the holidays. And so you want to be in that mindset that you need to ramp this up. Your career, depending on like what your career is, you can probably like downplay that or let that coast. But for your business, I'm going to say ramp it up and crank out as much as you can while everything is quiet and low key on the outside. And what that'll do for you is, like, when you start up the new year, you already can get the ground running and just focus on your career and your family life, whatever, and then let your business do its thing. Now, will you still have to show up for your business and do all the things, or if it's coaching, consulting? Absolutely. But those small administrative things are taken care of. And that's showing self-care, because again, you're pouring into future me, you're being strategic, you're alleviating a stress before it becomes stressful. That's what I want to say. And that's one of the best things you can do for your future self is, where is the stress and how can I fix that now before we get there? And some things are avoidable, to tell you the truth. And so you will appreciate that, and your mind will appreciate that, and your body will appreciate that, because you know how things go in January and how things kick back up. And what a gift to yourself that you've gotten some of these minor things taken care of. So the reason why I said do all of this is, I pretty much explained it, but you want to make sure that you are doing what you can from a place of future you and taking care of what you can take care of. A lot of times I think we've gotten so used to the moving fast pace, and once we've gotten to a plateau, it feels good for us not to rush or to always be in the hustle. So if you know how you feel, and please follow me when I say this, if you know what that feels like right now, why don't you give yourself that gift in your side business? Do the hustle stuff. And it is self-care, because you're not thinking about self-care now, because self-care now says, oh, relax, relate, release, indulge in all of that. Take time off, you deserve it. But I'm gonna do a little spin on it. I want you to think bigger, because you want this business to thrive. You want, whatever you're doing on the side to thrive. So I would say, and this, some people may disagree, and that's fine. But from what I've noticed from people, successful entrepreneurs. Now, I'm not talking, okay, let me back up. If you do these things now, especially the holidays, and you get the stuff up and running now, next year you can coast, because you already have your systems and things in place. So that's what I really want to say. Put the effort in now, and think of self-care, especially for the parallel-preneur. Think of self-care for the future version of you. And even if you don't wait all the way into next year, think of just next quarter, how much easier it'll be to show up and do all the things next quarter when those minor things are in place. All right. So I hope that made sense. I would love to hear from you. Make sure you put the comments down below. What is your takeaway? And then what is a strategy that you would like to incorporate? Like, what do you think is a good self-care tip for parallel-preneurs? And if you disagree with anything I said, feel free to put it down in the comments below, but just make sure that you let me know why you disagree. All right, so I would love to have this conversation with you, and thank you so much for listening and learning with me. And remember to be well, be empowered, be bold, and be brilliant. Until next time, bye.